Hey guys, so I wanted to talk a little bit about cleanse, and I've actually been asked about cleanse a lot, and I believe I've made videos about cleanse in the past, but I wanted to kind of reiterate the things that you should be paying attention to when you are looking to cleanse and on the heroes that have cleanse. Now, I'm particularly talking about cleanse as the actual ability, things that grant unstoppable for 1 second. While this is available to fewer heroes than it has been in the past, it's still really important to know when and how to cleanse and what you should be looking for when you take cleanse. Cleanse is one of those abilities that I've seen drastically reduce the win rates from heroes when they pick cleanse over another important talent on that tier. So let's talk about cleanse a little bit, and let me break down what cleanse is when I pull up this hero. So I'm playing Rehgar this game. Cleanse is a 60-second cooldown that makes a target ally unstoppable for 1 second. You cannot cast it on yourself. So what are the important things that you need to know about this? 60-second cooldown, it means that it's much longer than a basic ability. It's something that you should be treating as if it's like an ultimate ability. It's the same cooldown as many ultimate abilities as well. It's the same cooldown as, let's say, Blessed Shield from Joanna. So whenever she Blessed Shields, you can cleanse one target. It's a really good ability. The other thing is it makes you unstoppable. What unstoppable means is you can't be affected by CC. You can still have your damage reduced, but you can't be affected by stuns, silences, even blinds now. So much of the game you can't be affected by. Which is why I'm going to bring up the things that you should be doing with cleanse. There are three types of cleanses. There is predictive, reactive, and offensive. So, a predictive cleanse is something that you will cleanse not necessarily before a CC hits, but you're going to be looking for it before the CC hits. So if it's something like a hook, you're going to cleanse before the hook lands. If it's something like Variant Taunt, you kind of want the taunt to go off, so at least the cooldown gets triggered. Then you cleanse it, so he doesn't just immediately taunt right after the cleanse is over. So predictive doesn't always mean right before it, but you're going to pick the abilities that you're going to watch before you even pick cleanse. So for example, if I was on blue team, I would look at this team and go, okay, well, Diablo's charge, I want to cleanse before the flip goes off, so they can walk away. So they get hit by the stun, they cleanse, they walk away, so they never get flipped. That also is going to prevent them from dying from Apocalypse, because if the cleanse happens, they don't get flipped back into the Apocalypse, they walk away. Ragnaros, if he goes the other ult, not Lava Wave, then I'm going to be looking to cleanse right before that thing lands so that people can just walk away. Nothing on Genji, and then if by any chance Zul'jin goes net, and then nothing really on Rehgar. On the opposing team, if they go taunt, I need to be looking for the taunt. Otherwise, Blizzard. If Blizzard goes out on the ground, I want to make sure that I can cleanse right before the stun goes off, or at least long enough to where my team doesn't get slowed so they could walk out of it. Preferably right before the stun goes off. So to be predictive, because I am on red team and I'm picking cleanse, I'm not too worried about a slow from Falstad. I'm more worried about a taunt or that Blizzard. Outside of those two things, maybe the dash from Lucio, because if he does that, it's a pretty big slow. I don't know what by what percentage. I think it's 75%, which is a really good slow. Yeah, 75%. So I'm also going to look at that. I'm going to look for those three things: taunt, the end of Blizzard, and that 75% slow. Those are the three things that I'm looking for with cleanse, and you should always do that. Before you take cleanse, you look for the things that are realistic to remove. Some stuns are too short, you don't even really want to remove it with cleanse, like Mal'Ganis' Q. It's not really worth cleansing. Where Mal'Ganis' sleep, on the other hand, could be pretty important. So don't look at every single CC in the game to cleanse. You look at probably 2 to 3 of the most important and the most obvious CCs that are going to be the most dangerous as your predictive CCs. This should consist of about 75% of your cleanses. Reactive cleanses. In response to a specific situation, maybe this slow on Falstad is going to be the only thing that actually leads to the kill here. Because you're already getting out, and the slow on this Falstad is going to lead to a kill. That's where you're going to respond to the situation. The majority of response cleanses are too slow because we have to react, but cleanse also has a range, and different range depending on who you're playing. And so there's a lot of things that go in, which makes reactive to just anything. You not only need to have your reaction time, but you also have to have your processing time of, wait, is this actually going to lead to a kill or not? What is this actually doing? And so in general, you're usually about a second to 2 seconds late if you're doing a reactive cleanse. Only 20% of cleanses should be reactive. And then finally is offensive cleanses. Offensive cleanses could be a wide variety of things, but let's say that Mei drops down a blizzard, and that blizzard is going to prevent your Diablo from catching up to someone that he slowed. And so on the way to that target, he's going to get slowed and he won't be able to lead to a kill. However, if I cleanse Diablo, he's already slowed the target, he could catch up, flip him, and pull him back to the team. That cleanse could be the difference of Diablo getting that kill or not. Oftentimes, the most common offensive cleanses that you will see are on abilities that can be prevented. So, for example, a mosh pit that can be interrupted. If a mosh goes out, you can actually cleanse, and everyone will throw their CC out right at the time that they want to interrupt that mosh. So, if you cleanse at the beginning of a mosh, that's usually the best time that people will waste all of their CC to try to interrupt, and suddenly none of those interrupts work, which means that cleansing a mosh could be the difference between your team landing a full mosh or a 1 second mosh, making this a very valuable tool if you understand. 5% of your cleanses should be offensive. And then the last thing that you guys need to know is the value. How likely is that cleanse going to be at preventing a death or leading to a kill? If you're cleansing a target that's already going to make it out alive, it's not going to do anything. And it's going to waste cleanse for a time that you may need it later. If you cleanse a target that isn't going to lead to a kill, once again, it's just going to be a waste of an ability and you might need it later. The biggest issue that I see with people around Plat to Diamond is wasting cleanse. In Bronze through Gold, people just don't use cleanse often enough. But in high ranks, people just use cleanse at wrong times. They'll pop cleanse because they have no other abilities left. And this is where having cleanse is one of those things where you need to use everything else in your arsenal if the predictive thing didn't happen. If the predicted thing happened, you're going to use cleanse first because you're waiting for that specific thing. If the predictive thing didn't happen and you used everything else and they're going to die if you don't use cleanse, that's where reactive happens. And then finally, offensive is another thing that's a little predictive. You've used everything and now you're watching the situation play out and you go, wait, he's going to get slowed. He's not going to lead to that kill. Then you go for it. Or you can turn the mosh ones into predictive ones as well. Because you're essentially predicting before a CC hits. A CC is almost always going to follow a mosh. So if you predict it and cleanse ahead of time, you can cleanse before the interrupt actually happens, leading to a longer mosh. And this is true with pretty much everyone who has an interruptible ability. Urel, Chen, all of those are definitely interruptible. You cleanse the right time, they can be a lot scarier. Keep in mind that's all of the things that you kind of want to be looking for with that. Now that is that. I'm just going to show you guys this game because it was a fun game on Rehgar. That gives you really everything that you need to know about cleanse, but if you just want to watch a game where I cleanse quite a bit on Rehgar in those situations, then you can definitely check this game out. But otherwise, that's the basic idea of cleanse, when you should use it, when you shouldn't, and just everything from there. Yeah, so I ended up going Colossal Totem. I wasn't really sure this game what I wanted to go because Electric Charge is really good with Diablo. He charges in and he's generally going to stay near at least one person the entire time, so the radius increase is nice for extra damage, and then you also have the extra healing for yourself in case someone tries to dive in on your team. In this particular case, I end up just immediately going to lane and I tell my teams to soak because soak is pretty much the most important thing that you can do. I actually out-trade this Varian because I beat Varian in a one-on-one until I get to until he gets to 7, but I also am kind of an idiot, so they just charge on me. I don't know if the enemy team is coordinated or not. We had our Ragnaros gone for the first half, so we didn't have a lot of pressure. So there's a good chance that the enemies are not actually coordinated. You might be asking why I dropped a totem there. I dropped a totem so I could pick up the fountain. Because if you're at full health and full mana, you can't pick up a fountain. So I dropped down a totem. I tell him to go here because I want to make sure that we get soaked because we're missing a full level of experience. So I tell him to go, and I continue on this camp. And that's pretty much the thing that I'm doing there. And then I also go for another camp afterwards. I know this one's a little late for the objective, but the objective did spawn in a favorable location. And we do have a Genji who can stall for a long period of time. So I figure if Genji can stall for a long period of time, it's better for me to get an extra camp. So I go for this camp, clear it up rather quickly, and I end up joining my team. I end up going for Healing Totem, and you're going to notice my build is a little strange this game. I was worried about the amount of sustained damage that the enemies could bring out, so I actually go Healing Totem, and I also go Tidal Waves. They didn't have a lot of burst, so I wasn't really concerned about the Earth Shield for anti-burst. And I also wasn't really too worried about Stormcaller because I am pretty good at mana management, so I wasn't really worried about running out of mana. So that's the reason that I went with these talents instead. It was just more valuable. That's why my build's a little strange this game. But I do still go Cleanse, so the relevance of this game is hopefully still important. So I see that the objective's spawning, and so what do? I back, and I also tell my team that I'll be to the objective in time. I say getting mana, and then I'll be there at objective. Level 7, you see I do end up taking Cleanse, and now is going to be the time where you're going to have to kind of pay attention. What are the things that I need to worry about? Taunts and the end of Blizzard, and that's about it. So I clear this up as fast as possible. The enemies are all showing mid and bot, so we don't really need to worry too much about this. My team's playing a little aggressive, so I could always tell my team to back up if I'm a little worried about it, but because they don't have Mei, we do have level 7. So I cleanse because I'm looking for taunt, right? But I wanted the taunt to go off. You saw that the taunt still went off for about, I would say, a fifth of a second, maybe a little bit longer than that. But then I cleansed it. I was watching for taunt already, but I wanted it to go on cooldown. So I cleansed after the taunt went off, but I was watching it. I wanted to cleanse it as fast as possible. Now, I don't have cleanse for the Diablo, which is kind of the unfortunate part. So I just try to heal him and drop down slows where I can. And we do end up keeping Diablo alive long enough. I certainly could have cleansed the Diablo, but I think if I would have cleansed... if I wouldn't have cleansed the Zul'jin, then Zul'jin would have been taunted long enough to get frozen by Mei. And that's the reason that I did the cleanse immediately, is because I didn't want to do that. So again, you get back to that value chart, right? If you cleanse too early, you might end up losing the value. So once again, I'm backing before the objective because I want to have extra mana. We decide to give the objective, so we just end up going up here. And I also mentioned that we're going to have level 10 by the next objective, so as long as we just double soak, when the next objective spawns, we'll have the advantage. But yeah, so that's the thing. If I wouldn't have cleansed on the Zul'jin and he would have lived, then it would have been a lot easier to save the Diablo. So keep that in mind whenever you're cleansing people. The other thing too is, in the value of cleanse, you also want to know that some heroes are going to be more likely to avoid things when they get hit by cleanse than other heroes. A hero that wants to stand around and auto attack, if you're cleansing him, it better be an offensive cleanse. Because they're not going to run away. They're just going to die. So it's like they're getting CC'd anyways. So just keep that in mind. I'm playing Rehgar, so I want to spend the majority of this game getting the camps. So you're going to see that I'm getting camps a lot. I almost barely joined my team for heals. If you actually look at the healing, I'm doing half the healing as Lucio because I'm not joining the fights unless there's an objective. And I'm backing before every objective, so I have mana. This objective I don't really want to back because I would get there pretty late. So I simply just stay here. I end up taking Bloodlust. I wasn't really sure about it this game. I figured that fight with Diablo we could have won if I would have gone the Ancestral, but then when we just saw how the fights were going, I was like, let's just go Bloodlust and just jump on people. This is a pretty awkward fight. I should have backed away earlier, but it ends up working out fine because of our Genji forces the Nazeebo to turn off his ult. I think if Genji didn't do that, there's a good chance that target would the Zul'jin would have had to pop his ult to survive. I would have been fine because I could use my Z to get out, but the rest is tricky. So we end up going for this. I immediately cleanse once again because here was the thing. If the taunt goes off its full duration, it's easy for the Blizzard to lock down for long enough. Now, it is a Genji, so there's a good chance that he could use his E to get away, but I wasn't really sure what abilities he's used already, so I cleansed immediately. Again, it's that value game where it's like, if you cleanse, he's for sure alive. If you don't cleanse, he might not live, but at the same time, I wasn't really sure who it was immediately, so I just cleansed because I saw the taunt. But the benefit is now it's a 3v3, and we can kind of just hold our own. I use my totem to just heal Diablo back up to full, and also using my Q a couple times to heal up. So we end up doing pretty well here, and now I'm back to capturing. So again, if I'm following the rules of value, I might not be using my cleanse perfectly, but again, it's only a 60-second cooldown. So if the cleanse prevents at least a huge portion of the health being gone, then it was still pretty worth it. Like, because I cleansed Genji, he ends up staying alive, and he stays at a pretty healthy amount, allowing us to win that 3v3. I could cleanse here, but I don't have it. And I don't even know if I would have cleansed there, because it was just Varian. If it's just Varian, you can't really do anything. This cleanse, on the other hand, would actually be really beneficial, because that cleanse would have prevented the Zul'jin from not only getting stunned from the Blizzard, but it also would have prevented him from getting hit by the snowball, which would have just been really beneficial for us. But instead, I don't get that. So in this case, I want to heal, and I want to make sure that my team can get out, but I don't know if I can do that. So I'm going to just drop down my healing totem so I can keep myself up. Genji ends up dying. I'm going to heal right here. I use my... Remember, a lot of people probably would have just cleansed here, but he actually didn't have any ailments. And I see this way too often when I'm coaching people. They'll cleanse when they have no ailments just because they have nothing left to do. Well, I knew that cleanse wouldn't have saved him, but I also didn't want him to die. And because we already lost the Genji, I wasn't expecting us to ever use Bloodlust offensively, because we're not going to be taking a fight down Genji and forcing a fight with Bloodlust. So I use Bloodlust to get Ragnaros out, so we end up not dying and we can still stay ahead in experience. So instead, he decides to attack and just gain his health back off of the Bloodlust, which is definitely something that you can do, but I was primarily doing it just to get him out. But again, this would have been a waste if I would have used Cleanse there. So right here, again, I can Cleanse, but he doesn't have anything on him yet. So instead, I drop down a totem because I have a feeling that he's going to taunt me. And so the totem slows him by a little bit, but not by very much. It slowed him by enough to where Diablo could flip him. And then right here, we go for an APOC combo. Just gets the timing a little bit off, and that's perfectly fine. I tried to go for a camp, but I realized that all the enemies were alive. Right here, again, I'm looking for the taunt so that I can cleanse. I don't cleanse immediately. I'm waiting. I end up cleansing because I figured that if he got hit by this stun, he would have been knocked back in. So either way, I cleanse so that, one, he doesn't get stunned by the Blizzard, and two, he doesn't get knocked back by Mei, or gets the 80% slow from Mei's icing. From there, we just walk away. We don't need to do anything. I drop down my totem before I get taunted so that the damage that I take from the taunt is healed up. And you'll notice that I do that a lot. Before I get hit by a CC, I like to drop down a lot of my abilities so that while I'm waiting for the taunt to end, not only am I more likely to survive, but I also just do stuff that still helps my team while I'm taunted. In this case, I heal the Ragnaros. He would have ended up dying if I didn't heal him. And then I end up just dealing damage because I don't have any more abilities to help out Ragnaros. But what I do have is damage. So if anyone ever tries to dive too much, you can do a decent amount on Rehgar. This game's actually surprisingly close. So while we are winning the first objective, and we did do very well with these plays, the difference of any of these kills comes down to like a single play here or there, and surprisingly a lot of games happen this way. If you're absolutely stomping, you're just going to win those games. But games that are close, these little details make huge differences, which is why I wanted to show this game, because of how many small details ended up being the difference in us like surviving. If I wouldn't have bloodlusted when I did, Ragnaros wouldn't have had the health to survive as long as he did, followed up by the extra heals that I threw out from this talent, he would have actually ended up dying. Right, here's another one where I pop Bloodlust defensively. We don't really want to be taking a fight where Genji has to back, and if we already have to wait for Genji to back, I was like, oh, we're not going to need Bloodlust. However, an objective spawns, which is where I probably shouldn't have used Bloodlust there to get Genji out. So I'm going to say overall this was a mistake of a Bloodlust. I probably should have just dropped down an Earthbind Totem and called it a day. But getting Genji out safely is pretty beneficial. I tell my team not to go for this because I was like, that's the only place that they can go, and we were missing Genji. But then they end up just spreading out and killing camps, or killing waves, which we're on even talent tiers. They should be trying to fight this. So instead, I got to clear this as fast as possible. My team ends up fighting, so this is a really split fight. You can see that I'm telling my team to back off. Remember, on even fights, people get carried away a lot of times. Yes, we've been winning a lot of these fights, but not communicating with your team is the way to actually lose this game. So telling my team to back up, it actually does work in a lot of cases, and in this case, my team groups up a little bit closer, and we're more likely to actually fight as a team, and we're more likely to win. I go for a quick heal on to Genji. I'm looking to cleanse off of this, but I drop down a totem in the bush just so that it's harder to kill it off, but I need to choose who I'm actually going to be cleansing here. But I'm really just looking for taunt. I didn't realize that the enemy already used taunt. So I'm just going to keep trying to heal and move totems forward. And I end up popping the cleanse right before the stun of the Blizzard goes off. This is, again, this could be considered either an offensive or a defensive cleanse, but at the end of the day, this is a predictive cleanse. I saw a stun going out, I cleansed the stun, didn't happen, and now he can auto attack. If he's an auto attack build, he gets more time to auto attack. And if he's not an auto attack build, this might give him a time to actually get out of this fight. Either way, it gives me just a little bit more time to get another chain heal off on him. And it does give him enough survivability to last a little bit longer. He ends up dying. I do a couple of retreat pings for us to get out. We still win the objective, but I want to make sure that we just don't end up losing anything more. He has his souls, or he ended up losing his souls anyways, so now these next few fights are going to be a little tricky. Now we're going to have Bloodlust. We probably could have won that fight if I didn't make the mistake on using Bloodlust defensively. I see Diablo charge in pretty early. I throw out my Q first, and then I wanted Bloodlust to get all of my team some value. I'm going to drop down a totem just to try to slow down this Varian from killing this person, but we're actually really split in this fight. Split fights are really good on Rehgar if you get the Bloodlust off, because then each person gets a lot of self-healing and gains a lot of value from that. The downside about split fights when you're playing Rehgar, if you don't go Bloodlust, is that your Q only bounces so far. Now I'm going to lower cooldown on it, so I do have a little bit more healing over time if everyone's on different targets. If everyone's focusing a single target and I don't have cleanse, that target just dies. So right here, my cleanse was on cooldown a second before, so I probably didn't expect to have it. So you can see I didn't actually cleanse that taunt. And I'm trying to play pretty safe overall, if you've noticed. I'm only going in at certain times, I'm stepping away, and I'm just trying to keep this Ragnaros alive as long as possible. Right here, I could have gone for a cleanse, but this is where I bring back value. Is the cleanse actually going to lead to you saving someone, or are you just going to end up losing that person anyways? Even if I cleanse there, he would have died anyways. So in this case, I head back in now that we've already traded 1 for 1. And now I'm back to healing my team, and I drop down to 90% slow on these guys, giving us more time to kill this. I also go, and again, I could cleanse that target, but it comes down to, is it worth it? We were already winning, and we didn't need to go for anything more there. And so I end up just going for the objective, and then I just go push. My team stays top for a little while, so I tell my team to back off. And when they don't back off, I head up there just to make sure, and I continue to VPing them, trying to get them to back off. I'm trying to stay close enough in case this guy gets taunted, but I'm really concerned. So right here, I see the 75% slow. I end up going for the cleanse. Even though the 75% slow didn't land, I thought it did, until watching the replay when I realized it didn't. But if that would have gotten a hit, he got hit by the 75% slow after he dashed, which means that could have actually led to a kill. I tell my team once again that I'm hearthing to have mana for the objective, and I tell them that I will have Bloodlust. So I want to make sure that my team waits until I get there. And now we can certainly go for the fight if we want to. I want to Bloodlust while my entire team's nearby, so you're going to notice I could also cleanse on that if I want to, but the cleanse is already used to save him. I Bloodlust while I'm around my entire team, and I reposition my totem to be closer to the enemies so that he has a hard time catching up to anyone. And then I see that my Valstad chases the Genji away, but at the same time, we already got a kill. So when Genji comes back, I'll be able to give him a quick heal as well as 2 globes, one from down here and one from the one that I do. So I give him the quick heal. He gets 1 globe, and I capture this so we can get this 2nd globe. That was a miss. I'm gonna say that he probably didn't know where I was, or he aimed it at the first spot. I dropped down a totem, and I dropped down a 2nd totem to just slow everyone by 90%, get the extra totems out, and I just go for these heals. At this point, I'm just pretty much sticking with my team. I've got my cleanse if I want to go for an offensive cleanse, most likely looking at Ragnaros here, where I might cleanse him as he gets slowed. So I do a 90% slow, and then I go for a heal, and we pretty much just wipe the enemies at this point. And so the rest of this game, you can play a little more aggressive if you want to, and we can close out this game. So you can see that the cleanses, the predictive cleanses, allow you to just, your team to take less damage in fights because they're not getting CC'd for very long, as well as just generally have more value. Same thing I want to point out is that I adapted my build from either of the meta builds. So be willing to adapt as well. You don't always need to go the exact meta build. You can look at the situation and go, oh, they have no burst, but they have a lot of sustain. I'm going to go like an anti-sustain build. You saw I didn't take this the mana talent at 4, but I never ran out of mana. I got the camps, and then I backed before every objective. So I'm a little bit more comfortable on Rehgar. I know how much mana I'm going to need for camps. I know how much mana I'm going to need for objectives, so I almost never need to actually take that mana talent on 4. I can just always take the healing totem, which is just extra healing during team fights. To the point that if we go back to the stats, I'm out healing Lucio now. Even though he was doubling my healing at a point, I'm out healing him. And that's because during team fights, I heal more than he heals, and we also have gained levels because I've been getting more macro than him. But at the end of the day, this was a cleanse video, and that's what I really wanted to focus on, was the value of cleanse. Did I get the best values out of cleanse this game? Probably not. But did I prevent the enemies from getting a lot of extra damage and potential kills from using cleanse? I believe so. I do think that everyone should be spending more time in improving cleanse because it's one of the best ways to counter plays that the enemies make. If you do a there are heroes that are playmakers, and cleanse is one of the best counter playmakers in the game, because any CC that's about to be thrown out, you can cleanse it, your team can move before all the follow-up damage happens, which is great. Cleanse is definitely valued a little bit weaker in the lower ranks, to the point where I sometimes don't even take cleanse because people don't move after they get cleansed, which is why if you are going to take cleanse in the lower ranks, you need to make sure that you do cleanses before people get hit by CC. If you do a cleanse before the enemy gets hit by a CC, then they'll still move around, or before your ally gets hit by a CC, then they'll still be able to move around. But if you wait too long, then they don't get that extra value, and they might just stand there because they assume that they're still getting CC'd. I can't tell you how many times in low ranks people who get CC just take their hands off the keyboard, which is actually kind of surprising, because like when I was low ranks in like League, I would just like mass right click thinking that that might be able to reduce the cooldown a little bit. But either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully this improved your cleanse and also gave you an idea of what it looks like in these fights. You saw I cleansed like instantly almost every fight, and I don't even have that good of reaction times. It's more that I'm predicting what's going to happen, and I'm cleansing it immediately. Even though it looks like I have amazing pro level reaction times, I really don't. It's more that I know where I need to cleanse, and I'm watching for the particular cue. It's like if you're ever doing that like ruler drop test, and they say, oh, well, this is going to gauge your reaction time, except for one person counted down before he actually dropped the ruler. It would be like you would always be able to catch it like instantly because he's counting down first. However, if they drop it randomly, then it actually tests your real reaction time, which is why predictive is better than reactive whenever you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and feel free to check out my other videos.